Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today my name is Osereme, and if you're here for the first time, thank you so much for stopping by. On this channel I share sewing tutorial, pattern drafting, sewing vlogs and all of that kind of content. So if you're interested in stuff like that, please hit on the subscribe button down there and turn on notification bell. This is going to be a very long video because in this video I'm sharing with you guys how to make a corset, how to add a yoke to a corset, how to make a basque waistline, all of that in one video. So if you're interested in learning how to do all of that, please keep on watching and let's get started with the tutorial. Girl, keep on loving me. So guys, these are the fabrics you're going to be using to make this dress. So the first fabric I have here is this lining. You are going to need 2 yards at least. Then I have this Ankara. I have about 1.5 yards of this, and then I have this lace that I am going to be using for the yoke. You can see it's transparent, and if you do not want to use lace, you can go ahead and use your illusion net in place of the lace. Also, I have this black scrap, which is what I'm going to be using for the waist area. Then I have my stay, and also I have my wadding. So these are the fabrics we're going to be needing to make this dress. So guys, to get the corset pattern, I already went ahead to draft out this basic bodice pattern. If you don't know how to do that, I already have videos on my channel, or if you want to watch a video of corset where I started from beginning, it's already also up on the channel. So this line here is the shoulder line, then this second one here is the chest line. This right here, from here to here, you can see from here to here I have 10 inches, and 10 inches is my bust point. Then I have my under bust point, and then here I have the waistline. So after doing that, the next thing we are going to go ahead and do is to come over to the shoulder line here. We're just going to divide the measurement we have at this shoulder point into 2 equal halves, and then you're going to connect it to meet the bust point. So guys, when you're through with that, if you're familiar with my corset patterns, you will know that I like to take measurement from the bust line here down to the under bust, and whatever I have there, I use it to create a circle all the way around. I usually prefer to create a circle for my corset. It's not that it's very necessary, but it just gives it just helps you to have a guide. So the measurement I had from my bust point to my under bust was 3 inches. So I'm using that 3 inches to draw a circle around. So after doing that, the next thing I'm doing is from this dart here, I'm going out by 1/2 inch, and I'm doing that on the under bust line. Can you see? I did it on both sides. So you're going to go out by 1/2 inch on both sides of the dart, and when you're through, you connect it to the ends of the dart. So guys, after doing that, as you can see, I'm just using my cut rule to connect the points from the under bust to the top of the dart. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to take the measurement in between the dart on the under bust here, and what I had there was 1.5 inches. So I'm going to come to the top of the circle here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 1/2 inch to the part going towards the center, as you can see, and then I'll give the remaining 1 inch to the part going towards the side. So now I'm going to use my ruler to just connect these new points to the bust point. And also I'll just use my marker to trace out this line. So guys, after that, I'm just going to come out by 1/4 inch on both sides of the line that we just made, and then I'll go ahead and connect it into the lines like this. This is just going to help tighten up our cup at the top. So now this next part is totally up to you. From the chest line, you can decide to come down or go up a little bit depending on how much cleavage you are willing to show. So what I'm doing now is from the chest line, I'm coming down by 1 inch. So you can decide to come down by 1/2 inch or decide to just maintain the chest line. But for me, I decided to come down by 1 inch. After doing that, I went in by 1/2 inch. So that was how I got this little line. So now what I'm just doing is connecting this new point here to the point at the top of the cup, and then I'll connect this point to the under bust. Now the next thing I want to do is to divide the measurement we have here by 2. Just this part you see me doing here, just this little part on the other bust. When you divide it by 2, you're going to come down by 1/2 inch, and as you can see, from that point I drew a line all the way to the end of the side. So I just went ahead to cross this formal line so that you guys know that we're no longer making use of those ones. So now I connected the top part to the new line and then connected the other part to the underbust, just like I did before on the other side. So we have our cups labeled 1 and 2, and that's basically all for the cups. I just went ahead to use my marker to trace out the upper part of this pattern because we are going to be needing a yoke. So after doing all of that, now on this chest line here, I went ahead to divide my bust measurement by 4 and I marked it there. And then I'm taking the measurement in between this area, which is the dart. So I marked it as well, replaced it, and then I added 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. Now we're coming down to the waistline. Waist measurement divided by 4, I marked it. Now I'm going to replace the dart, which is 1 inches. Then I'll add 1.5 inch for stitching allowance, just like we did at the top. So now we'll just connect these 2 points from the chest line down to the waistline and just connect every other thing together. So this is basically all for the front pattern. So this area here at the top is going to be the yoke. So I'm just going to go ahead now and cut it out. So when you're cutting out this yoke area, please take a look at how I'm cutting it out so that you don't mistakenly destroy the yoke. So guys, that's basically all for the front pattern. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering where is the basque waistline. We're going to do that right now. But first of all, I'm just making arrows on these cups to know how they're going to sit when I'm stitching it down. So now basically what I'm going to do is to join the body of it together. So let's remove the cups and the yoke, so that since we've already cut away the dart, I just went ahead to join it together so that I'll cut it as a one piece instead of cutting it in 2 pieces. So I've joined the body part together, so it's now one piece. So I've gone ahead to bring another piece of pattern paper, and what I'm doing is just joining this front piece on it, just like you see me doing like this. Just use your sellotape or whatever you have to just join it like this. So now we're going to go ahead and get our basque waistline. So this is very easy, honestly. So what you're going to do is from this point here, you're going to come down by either 3, 4 or 5 inches. I think that's like the lowest you should go, because if it becomes too low, it will be hard for you to stitch down. So for me, I went down by 4 inches and just connect it to meet the side and went ahead to cut it out, and that's all for the waistline. So these are the cups right here, and then this is the yoke. So right now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the back pattern. So guys, I've already gone ahead to draft out a basic back pattern. I've done this severally on the channel, so there are so many videos on how you can do this in case you don't already know how to do this. So what I'm going to do now is this upper part is going to be the yoke. You're going to understand that very soon. So for the back, I wanted a deep V neckline instead of this round neckline. So from the chest line, I just arranged my ruler and I'm just going to make a V line like this. And that's basically all for your V neckline, trust me. So I'm just going to cut out this part. Can you see how I cut it out? And then I went ahead to cut out the upper part as well. So that part is going to be the yoke. And then for the body, I went ahead to get rid of the dart as well, so that I'll cut this as a one piece. So that's all for the back pattern basically, and these are the front pieces. So now it's time to start sewing. So guys, just in case you found this pattern drafting a little bit too hard to understand, because I feel like I was a little bit fast in this particular video, just go ahead and check any of my previous corset videos. Those ones are a little bit slower. So I've gone ahead to use the pattern to draft out on my actual fabric. So you can see the yoke, I'm using this lace as you can see, and for the cups I'm making use of Ankara, and I went ahead to have half an inch stitching allowance all the way around my pattern paper. And for the body, I am using my black crepe, and I also went ahead to give it stitching allowance. For the back pieces as well, for the body of the back I have my black crepe, and for the yoke I have my lace as well. So basically we're going to go ahead and start sewing this. So guys, also every pattern that I showed you guys just now, I've also gone ahead to cut out lining pieces for every single one of them. So these black ones you're seeing right here are my lining pieces. And remember that I showed you guys my stay earlier. So I went ahead to gum my stay to the cups, as you can see, and I also went ahead to gum it not only to the cups but also to the lining of the cups. So I'm just arranging my cups right now. That's why you should not throw away your patterns when you're through cutting it out, so because you're going to need it to stitch your pieces together. So I've just arranged my cups right now. This is how they're supposed to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin them like this, right sides facing each other. I do this a lot on the channel, so I'm sure a lot of you guys already know how to go about this. But if you don't, just go ahead and put it right side facing each other, just like you see me doing like this. And by the time you turn it over, you see that you have a very nice looking cup. So we're going to go ahead and stitch down the side, and we'll do the same thing for the other pieces as well. So guys, remember that you added half an inch stitching allowance to your cups earlier. So that half an inch is what you're going to use to stitch them together, just like you see me doing like this. So after I was done with that, this is what it looks like. I'm just going ahead to make notches all the way around, just like you see me doing like this, and I'm going to turn it to the right side, and we have a nice looking cup. Like I always say, if your cup has room, like it is looking like this, space for your breast to sit like this, you know you are on the right track. So I've gone ahead to iron it out. I pressed the seam open and it's looking all nice and neat. So this is the other cup as well, well ironed. So I've gone ahead to cut out my wadding pieces. Whenever I cut out my wadding, I do not add stitching allowance. Okay, don't add stitching allowance to your wadding. So what I am going to do now is to also arrange the wadding the way I did for the cups, like this. So I'm going to use my zigzag stitch to stitch down one of them, and I'll do a straight stitch for the other side for those of you that do not have a zigzag machine. So for this one, I basically just placed one on top of the other and stitched it down with a straight stitch. And for this one, I used a zigzag stitch. So if you don't have a machine that can do a zigzag stitch, just go ahead and do a straight stitch, placing one on top of the other. So as you can see now, I'm placing the cups and the wadding together like this, as you can see, and I'm just going to go ahead and iron it out, placing it on top of my ball like this. So if you've used wadding before, you know that there's a part of it that actually gums to fabric. So that's the part you face towards the fabric when you're ironing it out. So I've ironed my cups and the wadding together, and I've also gone ahead to gum my stay to the middle piece as well. Like I told you guys, you're going to gum your stay into every single piece except the skirt part basically. So what I'm just basically doing now is getting the lines where I want to place my boning casings. Now this is totally up to you. You can decide to just go with straight lines, you can decide to make curved lines. As you can see, I'm making some designs with my own, just like you see me doing like this. Whatever you want to do here is totally up to you basically. So you can decide to follow my own procedure here because this looks absolutely fine. So now what I'm going to do is to go ahead and use my bias tape to cover all the lines, and I'm going to stitch the bias on both sides. So guys, this is what it looks like after I was done stitching it down. So for this part, you can decide to fold your actual fabric and use it as a bias instead of using a bias tape here. That will actually look very beautiful as well. So now it's time to join the cups. So one thing I want to quickly explain is when you are stitching your cups, ensure that you are placing it rightly. Don't go and put the cup that is supposed to be on the right on the left. I've had some people telling me that they placed their cup and it didn't come out nicely, and that could be due to a lot of reasons, but one of them is placing the cup in the wrong direction. But as you can see right now, what I'm doing is I'm pinning my cup all the way around the half circle that is meant for it to be, and as you can see, it sits perfectly. There's even no space left. So I'm just going to go ahead now and stitch it all the way around. Before I said goodbye. So guys, after I was done stitching down the two cups, this is what I had. So if you're following it well, you will realize that yours is also looking like this as well. So now it's time to add our yoke to the front part. So one thing I want to explain is that when we cut out our yoke, like this when we use the pattern paper to cut out the yoke. By the time you are done stitching the cloth, you realize that the yoke is bigger than the actual fabric. So as you see me doing like this, I folded the yoke into 2 equal halves, and I'm folding the body part of the front piece as well into 2 equal halves. So what you're going to do is you're going to place it like this. Just ensure that it's meeting right in the middle like this, just at that circle there, just like I did here. You realize that some part is longer, but just arrange everything in place like this. Just make sure that everything is well arranged like this. So you're just going to draw a circle around. Don't worry, it's not going to be shorter in front. It's not going to be shorter in front because you're not going to be cutting the circle. You're cutting the excesses off. So you can see I just went ahead to cut off the excesses, and boom, this is what we have. So I'm going to place the yoke right here and pin it down. So once you've pinned down the yoke in the middle, you can go ahead and pin it towards the other sides of the neckline. So as you can see, I'm pinning it toward the other side of the cup, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other side as well, but make sure you start from the middle. So when we're done, can you see how nicely it looks? So if you pin it down and it doesn't look okay, go ahead and do it again before you go and stitch it down. So guys, this is what it looks like after I was done stitching it down. So you can see it has like a nice sweetheart neckline instead of a weird shape. So when I was stitching it on the sewing machine, I went ahead to stitch it from one side to the middle. So when I got to the middle, I went ahead to remove the pins from the other side that was left so that I can easily stitch down that part. When you're sewing, ensure that you do not draw any part of it, don't stretch any part of it so that it will sit perfectly. So you can see how nicely it looks at the back as well. So this is the front. So I've gone ahead to also do the same thing I did on the front piece. For my lining piece, I ironed my wadding to it as well. I've gone ahead to iron it out. So now we're going to go ahead and lining up this front piece. So I'm placing my yoke inside, can you see? And I'm going to use my lining to cover it up like this. So I like to also start from the middle because that middle is very delicate. So I'm going to pin this area down here. As you can see, I'm just pinning this lining to the actual fabric, just like you see me doing like this. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this all the way around, but when I'm stitching it down, I'll also be removing the pins so that I do not mistakenly stitch on the yoke when I'm stitching it down, because that would be very bad. So after I was done stitching it down, this is what it looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead and make notches all the way around, as you can see. And now we can go ahead and turn it to the side like this. I'll go ahead and make a top stitch on the stitch I just made towards the lining, and then I'll go ahead and stitch down the sides. So after I was done doing all of that, this is what it looks like. Can you see that the yoke is sitting perfectly inside? Nothing is holding it, it's just perfect. So when you're stitching it down, you have to be very careful, looking out for the yoke every single time. So that's basically all for the front piece. Now it's time to work on the back pieces. So these are the actual back pieces, these two here, and these two are the lining. So I've gone ahead to also iron my stay to the lining, as you can see, and to the actual fabric. If you do not have stay, it's absolutely fine, you can do without it. But I just always prefer to work with it because it just gives the fabric some element of strength. So now this is the yoke for the back. I'm just going to use my bias to pipe the neckline, this V neckline here. So basically I will just place my bias on it like this from the front. So as you can see, I'm pinning my bias all the way around the V neckline like this. And when I'm through with this, I will just stitch this down first and then fold it in and stitch it down again. So I'll be showing you guys what it looks like after I was done with that. So this is what I mean. So this is what it's going to look like when you're through piping it up with your bias. And basically this back neckline is done. Now we're going to fix it to the back. So this is the actual back piece, this is the side. So this is how the yoke is going to sit at the back. Okay, so now I'm going to mark the part where my zipper allowance is. So my zipper allowance that I left was 1.5 inches, so I'm just making a notch there. So I just made a notch there, placing the both of them together, so I know where my neckline is going to start from. So I'll place the neckline from that notch I just made. As you can see, you see how I placed it? So now you cover everything with the lining piece like this, and basically what I'm going to do is to pin down this top area like this. So when I'm done, I'm going to stitch down the top like this. Can you see how it looks? Can you see how it looks? So I'll go ahead and stitch down this top, and then ensuring that the yoke is inside, I'll stitch the sides as well. So guys, this is what it looks like after I was done stitching it down. I've already turned this part to the right side, so let's go ahead and turn this other part to the right side. So this is what you're going to have. So now what I'm going to do is to also go ahead and pipe the neckline for the front, just like I did for the back. So before I went ahead to pipe the neckline, I remember that on my pattern I didn't really go deep on the neckline, so I went deeper a little bit on my neckline. I didn't touch the sides, just deeper. So I went deeper before going ahead to pipe it up, so that it will not be choking on the neckline. I don't know why I always forget this. I think this is the second time this is happening in my tutorial. I'm going to take note of that next time. So now, as you can see, I'm placing the back pieces on top of the front piece, right sides facing each other. So I'll go ahead and stitch down the shoulders. So guys, after I was done stitching it down, this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to just pin down the sides so that I know exactly what I'm working on. So I've gone ahead to cut out the skirt part of this behind the camera. So if you do not know how to cut out a basic skirt pattern, I'll be leaving a link to that in the description box so that you can go ahead and check that out. So right now we're going to try and get that basque effect in front of the skirt. So as you can see, I folded my skirt into two to get the middle, and I'm just using my ruler to draw a line across that middle line. So when I'm through with that, I'm going to place the basque waistline of the front piece of the top. Can you see? Ensuring that the middle of the basque waistline is in the middle of the line I just made. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it in place so that it doesn't move. So just pin it down like this. And what I'm just going to go ahead and do now is to use my chalk to just make a mark all the way across this basque waistline here. Can you see what I'm doing here? Just make a line across so that we can go ahead and remove the top of it. So now this is what I have, right? I'm going to cut it out, but I'll be cutting it about 1/2 inch away from the line I got. So guys, this is like the easiest way you can get this V basque waistline effect on your skirt. So as you can see, I'm just trimming it around just to ensure that I have that 1/2 inch stitching allowance around. So you can see that by the time we stitch the top to the bottom, it's going to sit perfectly. So I just made a notch here in the middle of the skirt, and I'm making a notch in the middle of the top as well. So now we're going to place them right sides facing each other like this. So guys, before placing your V, please go ahead and add your boning to your boning casing. I actually forgot to do this, and I had to loosen it up after I was done sewing everything. So before we continue, put your boning through the boning casing. So you're going to place this V pointed part of the top on the deep part of the skirt like this. Always start from the middle. So when you've placed it in the middle, you cannot go ahead and arrange the other part towards the side. So just look at how I'm doing it right now. Arrange it towards the side. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch one part first, and I'm going to stitch this part from the middle to the side. So from the middle, I'll stitch it to the side, and I will show you guys what it looks like before we go ahead and work on the other side. So guys, can you see how nicely this part I've stitched down is looking? So I've only stitched down one side like I told you guys I was going to do. So now for the other side, we're going to, from this middle again, go ahead and stitch it to the other side. So it's best to stitch down one side and check it that it's okay before you go ahead and stitch down the other side as well. So now I'll go over to the sewing machine and stitch the other side down. So my loves, can you see how nicely our V shape is looking after I was done stitching the both side? And I did it only once, so if you did it the first time it didn't come out nicely, please loosen it and try it again. There is no harm in trying again. It's better you try it over and over again than trying it once and it doesn't come out nicely. So basically the next thing I went ahead to do is to just stitch down the darts for the two back pieces. So the skirt part of the back, I'm going to go ahead and join it, and I went ahead to join this side as well. So my major aim for this tutorial was the basque waistline and the yoke. So every other thing is just basically the normal way you make a simple dress. So as you can see, I've joined the side, and this right here at the back is our slit, and at the top here I've also joined the zipper area, but I'll be opening it up later to attach my zipper. So now basically what I'm going to go ahead and do is to cut my sleeve and attach my sleeve. If you do not know how to cut a basic sleeve, I'll be linking a tutorial on that also in the description box. Basically this tutorial is mainly to teach how to attach a yoke and a basque waistline. So I've gone ahead to attach my sleeve, and you can see how nice it looks. Now all that is left is for me to go ahead and attach my zipper to this back here. So I'm going to go right ahead and do that right now. Did anybody notice that I did not remember to put my boning? Like, I literally forgot about boning, so I had to go ahead and loosen this whole dress up again just to put the boning through the boning casing. I'm sure you must have seen it earlier in the video where I talked about boning not being placed. So please place your boning before you go ahead and join this front piece to the skirt. So this is what the back looks like. Can you see how nicely it looks? So yeah, this is basically all for this tutorial. This is the final look on me, all looking nice and pretty. Please do not forget to put your boning, please. I had to loosen this up. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you in my next one. Bye.